Let's hope I did this right. Okay. Hi, everybody. So this is Angie here, and the purpose of today's call is to discuss kind of Finance 101 for your franchise. We want to help you make good decisions with your money, budget appropriately, spend wisely, and be able to account for it at the end of the year, because we are all businesses that need to pay taxes and things like that. So what I did is I assembled a group of owners who've had success in this area and who have some best practices to share. And what I'm going to ask them to do is they're going to introduce themselves, do a quick little kind of introduction of them, their length of ownership, where they own their franchises in. And then I will be kind of asking some questions of them. And what my hope is after you kind of watch this webinar on the subject, that you can take away some good things that you can implement into your own franchise. So Alexa, I'll start with you if you want to introduce yourself to the group.
Yeah, I'm Alexa Halfman. I own Baby Boot Camp Southwest Portland and Sherwood Walton in Oregon. And I have been an owner for just over 2 years.
Okay. Kayla?
Hi, I'm Kayla Torres. I am the owner for Baby Boot Camp Orlando East and South Side. I became an owner last year, right? Last year, 2 years, or going on. I celebrated my 1 year anniversary this past January. Okay, I got that right. And I was an instructor, so
okay.
I did something right today.
And then Sarah.
Yes, Sarah Smith. I'm the owner in Norman, Oklahoma, and I have been an owner for a little over 6 years.
Perfect. And so as you can see, what we've done is we've kind of taken owners from all kind of lengths of ownership. We have new owners, we have experienced owners, and we have established owners. And I think why that's important is because your business does evolve. It won't be the same as it is now 2 years from now. And I can certainly attest to that, having owned my own franchise for 6 years. A few things before we start. I want this information to be helpful, but I also want you guys all, if you're watching this and if you're thinking to yourself, I'm a hot mess when it comes to my finances. I'm not good at it. It's not my thing. I just want to plan classes. I want to plan my stroller friends events, and that's it. I just want you guys to grant yourself some grace, be patient with yourself, and make a commitment in 2017. It's January right now, 2017. I want you to make the commitment that this will be something that you will bring kind of front and center focus of your business, because this is the way that you can ensure that continuity, that your business lasts, that your business grows when you have a handle on your spending and how much you should be budgeting for. We can't all be good at everything, and that is the entrepreneur's struggle, is that you can be really good at the community part of your job and really bad at the money part of your job, and that's okay. I want to encourage you to seek out help, seek out mentors in your mom's group. Maybe you have a bookkeeper or a CPA in your group of moms who might want to earn some extra cash, or they might want to get an exchange for free membership. It might be a good way to help account for some of the shortcomings you might have in this area. And never be afraid to ask for help. Ask for help from the other owners, ask for help from somebody that you trust in this area, because the more you ignore and the more you kind of perpetuate bad habits, the worse it can be for your business. So with that said, what I want to do is I want to start with Sarah, because she's been in business the longest. And also Sarah is a certified public accountant. She's a CPA. And so she has a different kind of background. So I wanted Sarah to, if you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit about your background and kind of how maybe the Finance 101, like, can you give us an idea of what your fixed costs are, what recurring costs are, and how you manage your expenses for the most part?
Okay. So yes, I have a CPA, and I work part-time at a bank as well as run Baby Boot Camp. I always have used QuickBooks, and I know QuickBooks for a lot of people is really scary, but after you delve into it and kind of figure it out, it's really just like an electronic checkbook. So, I mean, I would really encourage the use of it, because it goes so much further than just an Excel spreadsheet or just a check register, because you can run all these reports and you can compare, 1 year and 2 year and 3 year and those types of things all together. I know that we're getting to that point too with Front Desk, which is really nice, but Front Desk, then it doesn't have all of those other expenses in it. Well, it just has your revenue. It doesn't have your expenses like your franchise fee. Maybe you pay for a craft for play dates and those types of things. So recurring fees, the main ones that you would have would be your franchise fee. It comes out every month. You probably have your insurance, so that comes out probably once a year. You have any continuing ed that you do, so conference is rolled into there. And I mean, I definitely would consider that a recurring fee because everybody should be going every year. And it generally stays about the same cost. You know, you can try to plan to share a room with somebody and you kind of know what that fee is. Flights don't fluctuate that much. If you get a really good deal, then great, you save some money, but budget in like a nice fee for flights because you might not get a good rate. But so those are your main kind of recurring fees that I can think of right off the bat. Then your other fees are ones that you have more control of. So if you're not doing as well or you're very new, then those are kind of easier to keep lower. So you're not expensing meals and you're not going out on baby boot camp's dime and those types of things. You know, if you go to have coffee with somebody, you know, you can pay for it out of your account, but try to go for instructor meetings and have just coffee or have them at your house and provide some lower cost things that you pay for maybe out of the business, but it's not like I bought 4 people dinner. Some of those types of things. Other fees, I mean, I don't feel like I really have that many fees. Obviously location, some people have those and some people don't, and that's so geographically determined, and cold weather versus hot weather, and whether you have to go inside or outside. So that's just a really hard one that you have to determine with your own business. I've been pretty lucky and pay pretty nominal fees for those types of things, but that's for the other, between your location and your franchise fee, I would say those are probably the biggest fees that you're going to have to pay for. And I mean, the best thing to do is to make your budget. Do you want me to talk about budgeting now?
You can.
The best thing to do when you're making your budget is start with your franchise fee. And I like columns across the top with your fees. And then down the side with like your months or vice versa, however you want to do it. So for January, you're going to plug in whatever your franchise fee is. You know, you're going to plug it in for January, February, March, April, May, whatever. Your insurance, mine's taken out in September, so I would stick that in the September column. You know, your locations, your best bet is to figure out whatever your highest location rate is and try to budget that for every month. And that means, you know, if you go inside, well, then you saved that, or you go outside, you saved that, or however that works. But if you plan for your highest location rate for every single month, you'll have a little bit of extra in there, and it won't scare you if you have to then find another location that's even more expensive or those types of things. Then other things that you can plan in there, your revenue. I mean, I'm really conservative and always plan, you know, like literally like 10 clients less than what I normally have or so. I undershoot my revenue like by a lot because I always want an excess in my budget. Sorry, I got a phone call. Okay. I always want a good solid number in my budget net income number. I always want something left over, but I want.
They really want to talk to you.
I know a lot going on over here. And then, so that's how I run my budget. I try to like make the expenses the highest that I would think that they would be, and my income I plan for lower than I expect. Then I'm never scared at the end. I know that's way easier said than done, and it isn't easy in that first year when it's really hard to know what to expect, but your expenses unfortunately aren't really going to change. That income number that's going to fluctuate at the top, and that's really the only thing you have a lot of, well, and you don't even have a whole lot of control over that except for retain the clients that you have and obviously try to gain new ones. But that's how I try to do it. And then, you know, skim as much as you can. There's a lot of those things that you can't payment plan out. And so you're going to have to do it, you know, and so you can obviously, of course, borrow from yourself and repay later. You know, you can do those types of things. Just keep a really, really good paper trail when we're talking about that kind of stuff. So if you're going to pay something personally and then reimburse yourself, make sure that that receipt or that invoice states really clearly, you know, I paid with my personal account, and you can see it on the bank statement, you know, coupled with a journal entry in QuickBooks or something like that.
Okay.
Now we might be getting a little ahead of
That's
ourselves.
okay. That's okay.
Journal entries and all that kind of stuff, but yeah.
So you're talking budgeting and you have numbers to work off of. Kayla, you're a year in. So how did you go about budgeting yourself last year since you're on the newer side of things? How did you go about it?
I sandbag everything. I mean, I leave a padding for everything because I was like, that was always my biggest fear, was making sure I didn't have enough. I will be honest, until I got my business account up and running, I did have my franchise fees on my personal card.
Mm-hmm.
So at least I knew that that would always be accounted for. And then when I had steady income, I transferred it over to my business account.
Mm-hmm.
And as Sarah mentioned, I do use QuickBooks. So I was able to put notes in there. Like, I have a friend who is a bookkeeper. And so when she was asking, where was your franchise fees for this month? I explained, well, here's where it was, and I paid myself back for it. But there's actually a report in Front Desk that's called Projected Revenue. It's under the classic reports, I believe. And I'm not the most organized person, but when it comes to money, I like to plan and budget. Like, I will have like my budget personally planned out. So I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna have X amount of money in savings by the end of the year. So I do that, and I like to know how much money is expected to come in. And just like Sarah was saying, I know what my recurring costs are. So I will take what is expected to come in, everything that I know, do the same thing as far as, the highest amount of rent that I pay. And anything that I have left over after that, I set aside money for my taxes too. So I always take 20% after all of my expenses are taken out, and then set that aside for taxes. And then whatever I have left, I always like to have access. So especially when I know the conference is coming up, then I'll make sure that, I have enough not only to cover the conference fee that automatically gets pulled out, but to make sure that I have enough for, travel and things like that. So I like to always keep an access left over. And it really helps. That projected revenue report really helps. If you have a mom that's going to be going on hold or something like that, then it'll reflect in that. It will also reflect anything like this month, MOLO, my projected revenue was much different in January than it will be in February. So it will divide all that up for you.
Okay.
Sorry, my kids are screaming in the background.
That's okay. Thank you. And Alexa, the difference with you, Alexa, is you have a really large territory. You have a lot of clients, and you also have multiple locations. So how do you account for that? Because I'm sure that different locations bring you different types of revenue and have different costs and stuff. So how do you manage that?
Absolutely. So I lumped it all together. The big difference with us is that our indoor and our outdoor season are very different cost-wise. So I pay rent when we're in the parks too,
Mm-hmm.
but our indoor prices are a ton higher. So across the board, my instructor costs are the same. So I sort of take that into account with the franchise fees. I sort of know what to expect. But come October through April, I put aside a ton more as expected for rent
Mm-hmm.
than I do in the summer. So I make sure that I have just a ton of money in there for rent. It's expensive here. And then with multiple locations, we have 7 locations that we're paying for. So we have to take that into consideration. So I break it down per month with that, but I put it all together. So both of my big locations are considered one.
Okay. Yeah, totally. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you for that. Now, you guys have all mentioned separately that your budget, you guys do a budget. Do you do it yearly? Do you do it quarterly? Do you guys do it as you go? And that's kind of an open-ended. How do you guys budget? Alexa, you're not on mute. You do it monthly?
I do it monthly. Yeah. So I plan out for that month. And then I say, all right, this is going to be my expenses for this month, my projected expenses. And then I put a buffer on that. So about a third to half of what I'm expecting to spend. I'll also put a buffer of a third to half of that aside, just in case something.
Go back at the end of each month then and compare against what you had budgeted?
Exactly. Yep. And then I look back and I set myself goals based off of what I did the month before. So I was even trying to up myself every month on how much I profit. So that's my goal.
So this is something that comes naturally to you too. So if you were trying to talk somebody through how to doing all this, how much time do you think you'd spend on something like that if you were newer to the idea of budgeting and comparing actuals to your budget?
So it actually really is out of my wheelhouse. I think I'm not terribly great at budgeting. Like, it's not something that comes naturally to me. I definitely would rather be on like the sales instructing side, but having had to learn it, it takes a little bit of time in the beginning, but once you get it down, now 2 years in, it's just something I do at the end and at the beginning of the month. So I know come the end of the month, I'm going to spend a few hours looking at what I did for the month, where I could have done better, what I could have done more sales in. So I break it down in front desk as where my revenue came from, whether it was 6-month contracts, 12-month contracts, our run program, diastasis repair. And I say, all right, well, I brought in a ton of money in this area. Where can I improve on next month? And then I look at my expenses and I say, I had way too many trainers training this month. I'm going to take more classes on, or whatever it may be, or I need to look for a new location in this area because I'm just paying way too much rent for how many clients I have attending. So I just know at the end of every month I'm going to do that. And at the beginning of every month, I'm going to sit down and say, all right, I'm expecting to pay this much. And so I'm going to put aside this much money on top of it. So, it's a few hours at the end of the month and a few hours at the beginning of the month. But other than that, I run reports almost every week just to see where I'm at. Other than that, it's not a terrible amount of time, probably like 5 hours a month total.
But it sounds like this practice gives you a lot more control of your business. Like, you always know where you're at, client-wise, cost-wise, expense-wise, all of that. So I like that idea that you're spending time in the beginning and at the end of each month. So Sarah, I think you were going to say something. Maybe not. Okay. So that is super helpful, you guys. Let's see. How do you guys handle unexpected costs? So like Alexa mentioned, like, new location comes up, or, your insurance goes up, whatever. I know it doesn't really go up, but how do you guys account or budget for that? And it sounds like you pad the budget as it is. If I was kind of gleaming off of what you've said before, is there anything else? Is there any unexpected costs that have come up that you think other owners would also experience that we haven't mentioned yet? I'm trying to think. I can't think of any.
I was just going to say, I'm not a huge fan of credit cards by any means, like in getting debt, but as still being in my first year, and as much as I pad my my budget, if I'm a little nervous to take something out, but I know that something needs to be paid right away, I do have a business card that I've used for continuing education, but then I make sure to pay it back. So even though I've padded my budget, I want to keep that money in there, but then if it's not needed, then I'll use that to pay it back immediately. So for example, there was a conference coming up here in May that I put on my business credit card and then paid that off. And then, I've done marketing efforts that weren't originally budgeted for with the 2 other Orlando owners. And so that was put on, but then it was paid off. So as long as it's, as long as you're not, nobody ever wants to put themselves into more debt,
No.
we're in a business, we want to make a profit, but it is nice to have just that go-to just as needed, as long as you're responsible with it.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of making a profit and being in debt, all of that, how do you guys pay yourselves, and how do you guys pay yourselves? You don't just, obviously, we're not discussing hard numbers, but I used to pay myself once a month. I used to write myself a check to my personal account. And do you guys do that? And if so, how is that something you budget for, or is that something that at the end of the month, and that exercise that Alexa might do, is that something that you just go and say, well, this month I can do this much? And any feedback on that one?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I didn't pay myself for probably the first, 3 years. Don't take me for your example. But now I do, and I probably don't do it monthly. I do a bigger chunk, more like quarterly. So, I just just to make sure I have enough in there and that kind of stuff. And
Okay. What about you, Alexa?
So mine's monthly. At the end of the month, when I do that look at what I did, I set aside that money for the next month, my expected stuff I'm going to be paying for, the buffer, and then I say on top of that I can take out this much money.
Yeah. Okay. Is that similar, Kayla? I don't know if you're paying yourself yet, but you're
I
there.
am, and I definitely was in really small increments.
Yeah,
As
but
I
it's still nice,
started.
even if it's small. It's like you earned it, and you're taking it. It feels good.
I do, one of the things, when I had the conversation with my husband about doing this, it does take away time from family. Sorry. I committed to, I committed to one simple thing. So whether it's paying half a car payment, a full car payment, and it's not a big car payment, but that's as long as I can commit to that one thing. If there are months where I have additional revenue coming in and I don't have expenses down the line that, I need, and I've worked really hard, but I do have one commitment to my family that I said that I would do. And that's about it. But other than that, it's not a case-by-case situation, but it is monthly.
Thank you. I love that. Yeah. And I think that kind of as an aside, if I may, that our goal from like a corporate standpoint is that this is not a jobby, that it is something that's going to pay you for your time, for your expertise, for all the effort that you're putting forth into this business. And that is a big point. That's kind of that turning point in your business when you do start to find yourself regularly paying yourself, whether it is quarterly. I've talked to other owners who they keep it all in their business account, and then when their family needs something big, like a repair on the house or a vacation, that's where they go for that. So you're always contributing, and I think that really helps the health of any sort of relationship that you're in. When it comes to this, is that this is another baby of yours, and you should get something from it. So Alexa, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how you maximize front desk to understand your revenue costs and how to use that information for your planning. Do you use that in your monthly budgeting, your before and after budgeting that you do?
Yeah, I run front desk reports a lot, and that's mostly because I'm just a numbers-driven person in terms of the goals that I set for myself. So I always look at how I'm doing month to month, and I say, all right, if I did this number last month, I want to be able to hit this number next month. I always want to be growing, and so that's always my goal. So I run those reports constantly throughout the month. I run in the new reporting area, there's an invoice items report. I like that one a lot because it breaks it down by month. You can see, all right, last month I did this, the month before it I did this, and you can sort of see your growth. So I like to see that, and it helps me determine what my goals should be. And also, I can sort of project what I'm going to walk away with, because I can say, well, if we're in the winter month, I'm expecting to pay out this much money. If I'm bringing in this much money, then how much can I walk away with at the end of it? Of course, that changes month to month based off of rent and instructors and all that stuff, but I can get a general idea of it. So I use that a lot. And then sort of like I mentioned, I use transaction invoice items. So I break it down by where my money's coming from. Is it coming from memberships? Is it coming from our run training program? Is it coming from dialysis repair? So I can see that, and I can say, hey, I'm making a ton of money off of our 5K program. I need to focus on making sure that I'm doing that and I'm growing that side of the business too. So if I'm bringing in money from Big Bootcamp, that's great, but I also need to focus on the other aspects of this business too. So that's sort of the two that I run a lot.
The transaction invoice items report?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's in the new reporting area. I used to be a big classic reporting one. I'm slowly switching over to the new reporting. And it's cool features. It's got that like screenshot in the beginning where you can see like failed transactions. You can see everything that's sort of a screenshot of like your entire business for the month, which is awesome.
Okay. Which report is that again? That's
just right when you click on new reporting. It's the first thing that comes up. It has like charts and graphs and.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Anything else on front desk that we might have missed, Sarah and Kayla? Sarah, you're on mute.
Thank you. When I'm reconciling for the month, the easiest thing is I kind of made my own report of things that I'm looking for, and then you can save that as your favorites. So like I named it, for reconciling, and so I can split that up each month and match it to my bank account and make sure everything gets into QuickBooks and all of that kind of stuff. So, just not getting the wheel every month. If you're going to use the same report, make sure you save it and name it something so you can find it again.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And I love that you guys are using these reports to help drive your goals and where your focus is for the following month. My husband's a CPA, if you can believe it. And I remember at one time he asked me, he's like, well, what's your most profitable customer? What's your most profitable? And I was like, I don't know. It's just not the way my brain works. Again, this is why I'm like actually learning a lot from you girls right now. So I think that had I had that information over the 6 years that I ran my business, it would have helped me a lot. I hone in a little bit more on things that were actually paying us every month. So this is for all of you guys, what are some best practices you can refer new owners to when it comes to just simple tips to manage your budget? And so what are some things that, especially for our newer owners who are still kind of they're getting their heads around running a small business with recurring costs and the like?
So
how do you know like what to say yes and no to? Because like that's a question. I'm sorry. I see a lot from new owners too. Like, you know, and it used to be like all the marketing opportunities, right? You would get these like, oh, let's print out this baby National Baby magazine, and it's only $1,500. It's like if I split this with 4 other, no. Like we don't want you doing any of that. So how do you guys? How would you recommend somebody navigating through that? Anyway, Alexa.
Well, in terms of like the best practice, I could say is I make sure to keep my business and my personal very separate. So it's tempting when you have your business card and you're going out and you're like, I don't want to use my personal account. Don't use your business account to like get your groceries and stuff like that. It just gets messy and it gets confusing. So that's like my best practice tip. In terms of like the big marketing numbers, I say get a little bit of time under your belt first before making those decisions to spend $1,500. Well, don't spend that much money on a print ad ever, but before making those decisions on throwing down a big lump of change towards advertising.
So keep things separate. That's a huge piece. That's a great piece of advice. Like nothing should be coming from the business account. That's personal and vice versa. So
this is not so much as like what to say yes, what to say no to, but my first year of taxes, I only had like 2 months underneath of me, so it wasn't a lot. And even though I didn't really get into QuickBooks until last January. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, I've got QuickBooks that's just going to organize everything for me. And I go into projected revenue. I'm very old school. Like I like Excel spreadsheets and I like to see what my numbers are and I'll make my own thing. So I wasn't really going into QuickBooks as often as I should. Mm-hmm. And so for new owners, I would definitely suggest that QuickBooks is very helpful, but stay on top of it, because when I was going over all of everything this past December, getting ready for taxes, I realized I definitely, like I said, I like to plan. I don't like to organize.
Yeah.
So I realized how much organizing I should have done, and I wish I would have stayed on top of it more. So I planned very well for my budget, but I did not organize it. And so when it comes to taxes, and just having all that information right there, it's definitely helpful to make sure you just stay on top of it so you have the records clean and ready to go. That way at the end of the year, you're not spending hours and hours and hours.
You're not trying to figure out, what did I do in July? What did I spend this money on? And go back.
Exactly.
Yes, that's great. That's a great piece of advice. And again, we're starting new. This is 2017. Everything now starts going towards taxes in next year. So now's the time to put that in your calendar every month, is to reconcile your QuickBooks and make sure your bank statements are in order, all of that. So,
I mean, the only thing I would go back to on the advertising or locations or what to spend your money on would be that so much of this is negotiable. I feel like there aren't very many, there aren't very many people in some aspects asking for that location or asking for that time frame. So, I mean, I would totally be willing to, share your numbers with them and show them, well, these are the clients that I have. This is kind of what I make per class. This is what I'm willing to pay, and back it up with your numbers. Use your numbers in your favor to negotiate potentially like a lower rent or like a payment plan or something like that. So, this one location that I've literally been stalking these people for like 3 years, I finally got in with them, and then they wanted like a pretty ridiculous sum, and I was like, okay, well, you're great, but I'm not so sure about that. but the thing was, is I was getting it for like a whole year. So they wanted like this big amount up front. And so I negotiated to, they were going to buy a banner for me. Well, I was looking at our banners and ours were a lot cheaper. I was like, I'll provide my own banner, you know, those types of, and then negotiated it down. And then I'm paying a smaller amount each month instead of that huge fee up front. So be smart when you're making those decisions and ask for what you want and don't just let them tell you this is what it's going to be. You know, it might end up that you need to meet in the middle or you need to do what they need to do. Right. But try, you know, be forward with your money and be fiscally responsible and try to negotiate those things down, because a lot of times it is negotiable, especially at our times of the day. There's not a lot of other people using it.
Yes. I think that's a great point. And plus, if you have numbers to back it up, and if you're working with someone who potentially would want your business and want your moms in their location, but you can back it up and say, look, I have 15 people and this is how much they're paying. And this is how much these are, you know, this is all I can afford. It becomes they're not dealing with, you know, these big companies. They're dealing with small, you know, women-run businesses. So it might help you get a leg up. The last thing I want to discuss is conference, because it is probably one of the biggest things, one of the biggest expenses that we have every year. How do you guys budget for conference? Do you do it monthly? Do you guys just start in April? Like, what do you guys do, and how do you guys afford to go to conference every year? Because we should be at conference every year. Go ahead, Alexa.
I set aside just a little bit every month, probably starting in about March or so, which is about when I start looking at flights too.
Yeah.
So just setting aside a couple $100 here and there to make sure that I have enough, and then whatever I don't spend at conference, I get to take home. So.
Okay, so a couple $100 is what you're thinking a month. Yeah, I think that's very fair. You put it aside early.
Okay, I kind of get my per diem per day. I don't want to spend. Why is it when I'm talking my voice get crazy? I will set aside how much I want to spend on food each day. Like, okay, I'm gonna bring X amount of food to save money here, but I know I'll probably be eating out. This is how much I'll expect to spend. So I try to I don't get that close to budgeting until as we get closer to it. But as I said before, and I think what we all agree on is that we always like to leave a little extra in our account. So then that way you can take that money and set it aside based on what you're expecting. I think per year. So that's one thing that we know. It just comes down to how much are we going to spend outside of that, and just kind of giving yourself a limit.
Yeah, so limit yourself, set up per diem per day, know that you're going to overspend in some areas and not in other areas. Yeah.
And one thing that I will say that I learned this past year, though, that I didn't necessarily budget as much as I should have for, is everyone's going to want to go crazy in the store. So I definitely suggest budgeting extra for the store, because I budgeted for the hotel, I budgeted for food. The store, I have budgeted more for, so that's one thing. Definitely budget for the store.
I remember you at the store, Kayla. Yes. And you know that, I feel like as a experienced conference goer, that my first couple of years were like, I went crazy. And then after that, I was like, okay, Angie, one shirt. Like, just take home one tank for the year. It gets better, I promise. Don't tell Caitlin I said that, though. She spend, girls. Keep saving so you can spend there. So is there anything else? I'm trying to look at my notes today that I wanted to make sure we covered. Is there anything I might have missed that you guys want to bring up when it comes to being smart and successful with your money? Hi, Whitley.
Okay. The one feature that I learned about not that long ago on Front Desk was the invoices outstanding, like each day, like you can pull that one sheet down. And it was such an easy picture to look at, like, oh, that person hasn't paid for Molo yet, and I've sent them an invoice. Oh, that person hasn't done this yet, and they, you know what I mean? That has been like a really great thing for me to be able to look at, like almost daily when I'm taking attendance in Front Desk. I just flip that down to see the invoices outstanding for like right now, because they're sitting there right in class, and I can say, hey, can you take care of that on Front Desk? Or would you mind if I charge your card like right here, and I do it in my app like right then? So helped me stay on top of a lot of things, because I noticed last year when I put some invoices in for t-shirts for conference, I forgot to follow up. They had been invoiced, and so I'm assuming they've been paid, but then they hadn't. So like literally December 31st is rolling around, and I was like, by the way, remember that shirt that I invoiced you for and I actually gave you? Could you pay the invoice online now? You know, and I wish I would have done it sooner, because it would have been obviously way more effective, because they would have paid it. It was just outstanding and my fault for not staying on top of it. So, anyways.
Great. I know that's a perfect example, though, where it's important to stay on top of those things.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any other things? Go ahead, Kayla.
That reminded me of one thing that I highly suggest. I know some owners will buy equipment enrollment kits ahead of time and then sell them, so they keep that inventory on them. And I do that occasionally, just a small amount. But I would highly suggest not handing out any merchandise. Sometimes even purchasing it without payment. I did make a mistake of that, doing that one time, and I've seen other owners that happens to it, and it's definitely a learning experience. But for new owners, I would highly recommend either charge their card on file if they have it and they've requested it, or don't give out anything unless you collect payment ahead of time or have a means to collect.
And that goes for MOLO, like when you have someone you see at Costco is like, sign me up for MOLO. Oh yeah, okay. No, do not do any of that. You do not sign up or buy anybody anything until you've been paid for it. It's a very important part, because that's the hardest thing that we do, is that we encounter moms who are juggling the kids and the strollers, and they're like, yeah, just whatever, just sign me up, or I'll do that, I'll buy that. And then suddenly you're finding yourself chasing money. So any other things that I forgot? You guys are so helpful. I feel like I learned a lot, and I really do appreciate it. I do want to close by saying that there is help for everybody. The SCORE Association is supported by the Small Business Association, and what it is a volunteer organization of small business owners across the country who will mentor and help other small businesses. All the other small business owners will connect with you via email, or if you have a local office in your town, you can go on and attend like business workshops and money management type things. Those are free for you. And so I will be attached to this Zoom call. I will make sure to put notes about that. But as you can tell, there's a lot you can do, but I hope that what you can do is peel away some of the layers, start just with consistency, with some simple budget tools, get QuickBooks. Guys, QuickBooks should be part of our business. And then start to play around in front desk, and maybe make it a goal that you're setting aside 1 hour every month to do this at first, and then start to build in a little bit more time so you can plan for your success. So on behalf of our distinguished panel of experts, I really do appreciate your guys' time that you guys took for this, and I am so appreciative. And if any other questions come up, please do feel free to ask or contribute. So thanks, guys. Take care. I'll see you guys later.